right, welcome to the Peripheral Views podcast, everybody. Happy New Year to all of our loyal listeners. We're talking 2011 The Gray tonight. I'm your host, Jake. Erroll is with me once again. Erroll, what's going on tonight, my friend?
Hello, hello. Ready to bring in the new year.
Yes, Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everyone had a safe and enjoyable holiday. This is the first pod we're going to do in 2024. We're kicking the year off with a bang, too, and we're returning back to the film series. This will be our eighth installment of that series. We'll probably cool the jets on the film series for a couple of episodes forthcoming. But tonight we're talking about The Gray. We're talking about 2011 slash 2012, depending on how we've been having some dispute on the actual released year because it was kind of in that transition zone. But either way, regardless, we're talking
You
The Gray.
couldn't watch until 2012, so
Not in the U.S. at least, right? Yeah, it had an international release of 2011, December-ish, but really kind of pumped its way out into our neck of the woods in 2012. A great film and a lot more to talk about than you would expect from a survivalist thriller starring Liam Neeson. So we're gonna unpack that film.
before we get too much even into it, I would it's technically got every single conflict narrative I can
Oh
think of.
yeah, like all the
It's got
literary conflicts.
it's
Yeah,
got
they're all
man
there.
versus man, man versus nature,
Sure.
man versus self, man versus society, and man versus God.
Yes, I
That's
mean,
everything.
it's literally covers every single one of the. It's so funny because my wife, for the listeners who are unaware, my wife is an English teacher, and this was very much on the forefront of our minds watching the film because this is a big part of the film and a big part of how the film's constructed. And but before we dive in all those dirty details, let's do a little recap, Errol. What did we talk about in the last episode? It got a lot of traction on YouTube, a lot more than we're accustomed to.
Bunch, yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. If
thank
anyone else is listening from that, then yeah, that was cool. That was
yeah.
neat.
Yeah, Wolf
That
of
is
Wall
neat. It's
Street.
still going.
Who would have thought Wolf of Wall Street? I mean, it's a very popular film. We've talked about a lot of popular films, though, or a couple of them at least. You know, between The Thing has a pretty good following. The Shining's a pretty big film. I mean, we've talked about some great films, some a little
You
bit
know what?
under the
I hate
radar,
to
but
now that I think about it, I hate to admit it, but it's probably because like all like the Andrew Tate likes and
oh
like, oh
god,
yeah, Wolf of Wall Street, they're talking about
oh no,
selling stuff.
bro.
Like they're waiting for us to be like, yo, here's how I sell you this pen. Oh, yeah, and also like I said before, the answer to that, like sell me this pen is no. Is thank you for the pen, and if they like no really give me my pen back, then that'll be
yeah.
$3.
I
But
really,
yeah,
I genuinely hope that that's not the reality. But I mean, I'll take any listenership we could get. But like, I mean, there's a demo that's like, there's a demo
I
that I
don't think they'll
prefer.
like us too much because we're not gonna
No.
sugarcoat it. We're not gonna be like you can be great if you just pay us money because it's just not gonna
Oh,
be the case.
I will just pay absolutely no due diligence to like the fraudulency that goes on from that individual in the world. I mean, the very obvious too. I mean, just another figure. I think we've talked about this before. Like a Colby Covington type figure where like I just don't understand how like followers like can be so naive. Like I don't like I get it. I get the shtick, but I don't understand how people are buying the shtick.
Right,
Like
like
really
legitimately
buying it.
buying into it.
Yeah, like if like it's one thing to be a mark, to intentionally be a mark, but like it's another thing to like unintentionally be a mark. Like I don't know how we're not tapping into like the phoniness here. Anyways, well, we won't get into the Andrew Tate stuff in the world because
How did
not.
well then how is he rich? Because you guys are giving him money.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's anybody.
Like that's what he does. He gets money
Bad
from it.
people get rich, and fake people get rich, and like people with like very stupid messaging put out. We're getting into the weeds, so let's not even. This is not what the Peripheral Views podcast is about. We're talking film tonight. We're talking The Gray. But I was really Errol, the Wolf of Wall Street episode was a joy to talk about. I don't think. I mean, we missed a lot, obviously, because it's
Oh
a big
yeah.
film, and it's one of those films that's kind of like packed to the brim with many different artistic choices and a lot of blended topics and genres and art. All this stuff. It's a very very full
And
film.
like
A
a
lot to
bunch
talk
of like
about.
there's a lot of stuff like on set too. Like I think we like touched on it, but like yeah, the people are getting addicted to the lactose.
yeah, we did touch on a lot of that stuff, but yeah, like I will admit this that I don't think that we covered it in full with, but not to say that that was actually our intention in the first place, but I thought we did a pretty good job covering like
Me too. Me
the
too.
baseline, and you know, like I
I
said, there
think
could
it's
we've always said this, and we said this at the end of the podcast. There's always room for a part two.
oh yeah. I think it's a really good episode, especially for how much views it got. I'm not. If that like happened with the Lupe episode, I'd be like, guys, wait for next week. We'll figure it out. I just need time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those pleasant surprises. We really appreciate all the listenership and any new followers. If you guys are new to the Peripheral Views podcast, please feel free to go back into our catalog. We've got now this will be our eighth film. We've got four different music based episodes that are kind of centered around specific records. We've got a history entry in there. We've got some biographies, and then we've got stuff that's just totally off the cuff. I mean, we've done stuff just specific topics like cultural hypersexualization was a good episode that was not didn't really fall into one of our series, but was something we wanted to kind of unpack and do a little research on and talk through a little bit. So there's a lot to listen. We're a pretty diversified library, so all of our new listeners who are joining us on this episode, feel free to go back and take a look at some of the previous stuff we've got out there in the internet ether.
Yeah, and
Um,
any questions or concerns about them, yeah, we'll go over that. We're not shy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, we love feedback, and we're glad to interact. The more listeners we get, the more more interacting we'll probably do with the listenership. So maybe do some polls or some Q&A stuff as we start to get a little bit more of a following. So just hang in with us as we continue our development through 2024. It's a new year. And the podcast has we've got goals. We've got some objectives we're going to try to tick along the way. Um, that being said, I think that's a good recap for what we've got on the docket. I did want to touch upon before we dive into like the films of the year that the Gray came out. I wanted to quick shout out to a quick RIP to the actor Tom Wilkinson. Had to say something just in relation to Tom Wilkinson. Tom Wilkinson is a I should say was unfortunately passed away just a few days ago, a couple days before New Year's. An iconic actor, one of my favorite kind of character actors in the world. And a few of his performances are genuinely some of my favorite acting performances. Tom Wilkinson, he had some great success in a couple of films, such as The Full Monty, which I haven't seen, but I've heard he's pretty good in that. I mean, he was nominated for many awards. In the Bedroom was another one that was like an accoladed a performance. But I did want to mention one of my all-time favorite performances in any film, and definitely one of my favorite films ever. Hopefully, we get to talk about it on the podcast at some point down the road. And that's Michael Clayton from 2007. This dude put on one of the unbelievable one of my all-time favorite like supporting performances in any film in that movie. Errol, have you seen Michael Clayton by chance?
I have not. I have not.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about doing like a 2007 in film centered episode here some point down the road, and maybe the next few months, and that'll definitely be one that hits the radar. You'll have to get your eyes on. And Tom Wilkinson, a storied actor with like an incredible career in a wonderful library, unfortunately passed away just a matter of days ago at age 75. So I did want to make a quick shout out to him. He's also in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He was in Batman Begins. I believe he was Falcone or Falcone. Wait, no, I'm sorry. What was his character's name? Another Liam Neeson film, by the way. Carmine Falcone. Yes, he's the mafia boss in Batman Begins. So like he definitely had some
Hmm.
mainstream roles, but what an unbelievable character actor and supporting actor who contributed greatly to the world of film. Just wanted to make a quick shout out to him and his career after his unfortunate passing. So that being said, Errol, what do you think? Let's dive into. So the film, like we said, the film came out in 2012 in the U.S. And we kind of planned to do the year 2011 for films. Kind of just
Until
recap
2 seconds ago.
until literally about 8 seconds before the podcast began recording. So we're gonna make a quick audible and a quick pivot. No problem though. I mean, we can pull up a library of films from that time frame pretty quick.
Anything
Um,
that sticks out in your head, like right off cuff?
2012
Yeah,
or 2011.
2012.
Yeah, pretty quickly before. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm looking at a library of films, but the first thing that when you say 2012 for me in film, it's actually not on this list. But there's only one film that comes to mind for me in 2012, and that's The Master.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, The Master came out in 2012. I got to catch an early screening in Albany, New York. I just moved to college, moved into my dorm in like a month, or maybe not even a full month, a handful of weeks after I moved in. I happened to see that a early screening was going on for The Master, and this was Paul Thomas Anderson's first film since There Will Be Blood came out, and I was like, okay, like There Will Be Blood. Whoa, holy shit! This dude is like next level. He's really taking it up a notch. I can't wait to see what he does next. I had been anticipating the film, and I was like, as soon as I saw that I had a chance to see it, I immediately struck, and it did not disappoint. It is a masterpiece, and surprisingly, and very disappointingly, it did not really get the reception it probably deserved that year. What about for you, Errol?
I'd have to say off top, it'd have to be like Dark Knight Rises.
Oh right, yes. This is we saw that together. Me, you, and Mr. Morrison saw that in theaters
Oh
together,
yeah.
and we also all three of us also saw Django in theaters together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a terrible movie year. I mean, when it was good, it was
No,
good.
I liked Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man too.
Yeah, he was a really good Spider-Man.
I thought he really was, and I
Yeah,
I really, you know what I thought that they did the best in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that they don't do in a lot of the other ones. Like
what's that?
he moved like a spider.
Yeah, he's kind of lanky and like kind of yeah. I
Yeah,
can
like he
see
was
that.
like crawling over people and like wrapping them up, and like he had the most dynamic like web swinging. Like
Mm.
he would like do like crazy shit. Like you could, it's almost like he was like his character was like more acrobatic, and they kind of play on that a little bit in the new like what is it, like Away from Home or whatever.
Oh right, yeah. I haven't seen anything new, but like I do recall. I
I
think I
like
only
it.
saw the first one Garfield was in, not the second. But
I like the new one where it has all of them. It has Garfield and it also has Toby.
oh, they got them both in there.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's like all the Spider-Men.
Anything else that stuck out that year? I mean, it's not, now that I'm
Uh,
kind of sifting through, I'm actually seeing a little bit more than I had recalled. I mean, you got Prometheus came out this year. I didn't actually see that, by the way. I just know that that was like very acclaimed.
I would say other movie that's like up there. I'd say like Perks of Being a Wallflower is really good.
That's yeah, that's also one I have not seen, but was like pretty well received. Lincoln, Daniel Day Lewis as Abraham Lincoln. That's I know a lot of people weren't. Maybe they got their expectations a little too high, and maybe were let down by. I know that movie does not get quite the praise that I think it probably deserves. I think it's great. Have you
That's
seen Lincoln?
no.
Yeah, it's really good. Another one of my personal favorite Wes Anderson movie came out this year. Of all the Wes Anderson movies, which I do like pretty much all of them, my personal favorite, Moonrise Kingdom, came out this year. Um,
Okay.
excellent film. Argo was your Best Picture winner. Did you see Argo? Argo's pretty
No.
good.
Have not. Have not.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's Ben Affleck just kind of just pulling out all the stops and going for it, and making a 2 hour extremely exciting political action drama slash somewhat funny, pretty action packed fun movie. It's actually
Wonder
really
if
good.
Magic Mike lost.
Magic Michael was it nominated?
I don't know.
Probably
Oh,
Skyfall.
I don't know.
Yo, you know all the deets.
Skyfall came out then.
Yeah, Skyfall was this year.
Skyfall was hot.
Life of Pi was a pretty big hit. That was not a bad. That's a pretty good movie. I don't mind that. I thought it was pretty good. End of Watch was sick. End of Watch was very good with Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena. That
Hmm.
one bangs.
21 Jump Street came out that year as well as The Hunger Games. Felt like it'd be disingenuous not to mention
Yeah, you
those.
got to mention the Hunger Games. That what a monster success that was. Les Mis was this year as well.
Man, Les Mis is every couple years.
Yeah, they always got some rendition of that going on. I will say there's one film from this year that I have not. Well, I'll say there's two films that I have not seen that I truly they made their way to like my watch list anyways. Like regardless that we're kind of just talking about this year in film, they were kind of on my tick list to begin with, which is Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt. Is supposed to be pretty great. I believe the director of Killing Them Softly is this was the follow up of this is Andrew Dominic. Andrew Dominic is this was the follow up film he made after making The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is one of my all time favorite films and. I would assume that that's probably the case for most people who like film. That movie is just absolutely stunning. But yeah, Killing Them Softly has been on my watch list. And the other one that I do need to see is it's the only Martin McDonagh film I've never seen, which is Seven Psychopaths. Um,
Okay.
yeah, Seven Psychopaths is supposed to be pretty great. I think it's like the least well received of the McDonagh films, and he's only made a few. But McDonagh, McDonagh Erroll, he's the guy who did Banshees of Inisherin. Uh,
Hmm.
did that. He did In Bruges, Three Billboards, and then this movie. So I think there's only four he's made. This is the only one I haven't seen, but it's got a very good. It's got a pretty good reception, and I'm like super into like pretty much anything McDonagh's doing these days. I mean, that guy is just like he's money in the bank basically every time.
Yeah, I had a
So
really fun time with Banshees, so I believe
yeah,
it.
I'd love to talk Banshees on the pod at some point down the road. That's that was a genuine masterpiece of the last couple of years. One of my favorite films in the last few years.
It made me feel stuff that I haven't like felt before. Like like because the premise is so like you're like, what the heck is this dude's problem?
Yeah,
You're like, what
yeah.
the? Then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, McDonough does that, man. His movies are always like that. Like if I've been trying to push you on In Bruges to get your eyes on In Bruges because In Bruges has just got you're gonna watch that and just truly love it. Because it's like it's so dark and so well written and it's written like a play because McDonough is a playwright first and foremost before making films. But it's so dark and so funny. I won't spoil anything, but there's a scene where no, I can't even say it without kind of
Yeah, it's like
spoiling some
sounds like a
plot.
spoiler.
Yeah, it would be a
I'll just
spoiler.
try to watch it sooner than
No,
later.
please do, please do. I'm desperate for you. There's something. I'll just put it to you this way. There's a scene that involves I can't. I just there's no way for me to frame it without like kind of giving something away. Just trust me, it gets so dark and you wind up laughing at shit that's so dark that somehow I mean it's just a masterpiece. You will laugh and you will also feel some stuff because it's a very emotional film. But he's basically hit it out of the park every time. So I hope we talk some Martin McDonagh at some point down the road. But
Oh, for sure.
that being said, I think that's probably about enough for 2012 in film. Errol, are we ready to move into the film of the day?
Yeah, we're going to try to recapture that lightning in a bottle with
Mm.
Wolf of Wall Street and switch it over to the Gray. And this also has wolves, so like,
Yeah, we're staying on task. We're staying with the Wolves. This time we're going to remote Alaska, and we're going to take a short break. But when we get back, we're talking 2011/12, Joe Carnahan's The Gray. Okay, Erroll. 2012. I'm calling it 2012. Let's just go 2012. This is Joe Carnahan's The Gray. Um, this movie came out in 2011 slash 2012, at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. Directed and written by Joe Carnahan. It is based on the short story, I guess you could call it, Ghost Walker by Ian Mackenzie Jeffers. A lot of production assistance here with Jules Daly, Joe Carnahan himself producing, Mickey Lydell, and both the Scott brothers. So this is, you could kind of see this in the film. I don't want to linger on this too long, but Ridley and Tony Scott both involved in financing and production of the film, which is I think that seeps through in the final product. Starring Liam Neeson, Frank Grillo, Dermot Mulroney, Dallas Roberts, Joe Anderson, Nanzo Enozi, James Badge Dale. These are your basically the single characters in the film. Each one represents some things, and we'll get into some of that. Cinematography done by Masanobu Takiyanagi, who is he's done some great stuff, and he hasn't quite worked as much as of late, but some of his films have been he's done some fantastic cinematography work. I don't think he's quite done anything quite as good as this though. He did Spotlight, Black Mass, Hostels, which is probably second to this in terms of cinematography achievement. And then he did Pale Blue Eye, which was that came out just last year with Christian Bale. But I think the cinematography in this film and the photography really second to none. Um, Edited by Roger Barton, music by Mark Streitenfeld, um, distributed by Open Roads Films in the US, Entertainment Film Distributors in the UK, and Inferno Distribution internationally. Came in at 117 minutes, distributed in the US, in the UK, in the English language. Budget of 25 million, pulled in a solid a little over 56 million in profits, 81.2 overall out of the box office. So profitable film made money, and and it's a great film. Errol, kick us off. What's this film all about?
Yeah, it's all about man's uh man's struggle with survival. Just like having a struggling with like a reason to live.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
just it's just very much like walking the line of life and death and like what it means to live, what it means to die.
Yeah, it's about I think it's I mean the philosophy goes very deep. There's obviously some theology in there. There's a lot of Christianity imagery throughout the film, kind of poking around on the outskirts, sometimes very central in some of the shots. But Liam Neeson playing John Otway, a suicidal sharpshooter who's hired to basically he's hired to shoot to fend off gray wolves from there, on a remote Alaskan oil facility. He's there only on behalf of fending off these gray wolves from attacking the oil workers on site. Unfortunately, the film kind of opens in this very dark and solemn moment where his character John Otway is basically expressing the suicidality. I mean, he's writing a suicide note to his wife, who and diving into the podcast, you should expect spoilers. This is what we're doing here. We come to find out later in the film that his wife had been deceased. She had died of an illness.
Right.
Um,
And so I really like the lead up to that scene because like right in the beginning it starts off in nature and then it shifts into like the industrial like a man-made and like they both just still look cold.
yeah, beautiful
Um
contrast though. I know what you mean.
right.
The one
And
looks
he's just
beautiful and one looks like kind of ugly, and it's the man-made that looks kind of like dirty and like kind of like out of place almost.
right. And like when he goes to the bar before he walks off, he's like, this is just a place full of bad men. And like that bar is just a it's lit up uh by a neon cross.
I saw that. Yeah, I'm so glad you caught that too. Yeah, it's literally he walks and you only see it for a quick moment when he's like kind of it's in the shot, but then he's kind of blocking it, and then when he walks away, boom, it's right there.
Yeah, and like there's just something that didn't sit well with me with that like neon cross. Like it seems like like a man-made. Like it's not like a
Yeah, for sure.
natural. It's like a commodifying or like it making it like artifice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It seemed because of like the very unnatural color of like a neon cross or neon lighting. It really sticks out, and it doesn't have any reason to be there. Um, it really kind of just represents a sign, and it's just symbolism. I think that's just kind of strewn out throughout the film, and it did seem a little bit shoehorned in there, if I can be honest.
Well,
But
that's what I think is done on purpose. It's like almost like commodified religion.
yeah, that's kind of what I mean though when I say shoehorn. I feel like it was a little too on the nose for me. That specific piece of symbolism, there are much more like beautiful ways that like God and religion are kind of strewn out in the film. Um, so let's dive in. I mean, yes, you're right. The bar is an ugly scene full of ugly men acting ugly. Like that's what's going on here, and he's um there's this beautiful nature outside, and that's where the wolves roam. But there are wolves in this bar, and they're acting like wolves, and they're acting violent. There's a bar fight that breaks out, and he storms out, um, ready to end it all. And he puts a rifle in his mouth, and then it kind of contrasts. It does like a split, not a split screen, but like a back and forth cut to him saving a couple of oil workers from a wolf attack, shooting a wolf, and then approaching the wolf as the wolf is dying. And this is kind of one's at day and one's at night, right? Like the suicide is at night, while he's alone out in the yard, and outside of the bar, and then the others at day, kind of in the seemingly in the morning, and he's kind of resting his hand and guiding the wolf into death. And yet, and in the suicide scene, he's really just kind of gnashing his teeth along the barrel of his sniper rifle, getting ready to
Hmm.
commit suicide. And sure as it comes, he kind of guides in the day. It cuts to him holding the chest of the wolf as it's slowly his breathing begins to stop, and then it cuts back to his where he's about to pull the trigger. And sure enough, just as he's about to, the howl of a pack of wolves from the distance shoots into the air and almost calls for him to continue the fight.
Happens right after he says his dad's poem.
Yes. Yep. And let's recite. Errol, why don't you recite that poem for us?
It's he goes once more into the fray, into the last good fight I'll ever know. Live on this day, die on this day. Or sorry, live and die on this day. Live and die on this day.
Yeah, and and he mentions later in the film that well, there's two things. He mentions later in the film that like his that he came to realize he saw that poem in hanging on the wall, and then he realized that his dad was kind of a hard guy, and then he realized that like he says that like yeah, he thought he was a drinker and a brawler, but he
Thought the poetry rounded him out.
rounded him out, made him like kind of soft. And I realized that I thought it was so like kind of like a little on the nose, but whatever, it worked for me 100%. Is that the poem hung in his father's den, as he puts it. And
Oh.
right, and he recites, and at the end of the film, he recites this poem again as he realizes that he has found himself in the center of the wolf's den, and he recites this poem, and it all comes full circle, quite literally, because he discovered that poem in his father's den. Now he's found himself in the wolf's den. We'll get to that point in the film as we kind of work through it, but let's talk Liam Neeson. I mean, what do you think about the casting of Liam Neeson? There is some side notes about his personal life going on outside of the production of this film. Um, pretty horrific stuff. His wife Natasha Richardson had unfortunately passed away. She was an actress too, not an unknown person. She had passed away at age 45 from a tragic head injury, literally a year before they started the production on this film.
Hmm.
Uh, and obviously that hit them. The role being that his wife dies in the story of the film, in the plot of the film. Um, I don't. I was kind of appalled to learn how close together the death of his real wife and then him actually taking this role were. I mean, this is one of the first films he made after that tragedy happened. Um, and the director actually must have had a good relationship with him because he actually urged Liam Neeson to quote channel his grief in film when writing the letter, when he like writes the letter and he's crying,
Hmm.
which is like, boy, you better have some trust in. There must be a good established trust between the two to like tweet that or to kind of reach out to him to have him like, I don't know how you ask a man to pull that
Right.
emotion
Yeah,
out
I know you're really sad. Can you,
performatively.
yeah, can you use that?
Yeah, I don't know. They must have had a close relationship. I don't want to speak too harshly on it. I know that it probably would be a line I wouldn't cross as a director, but I'm not a director, so I don't know. Maybe they have a code of some kind. Um, but I will say, what did you think about the performance overall from Liam Neeson?
Oh my God, it's like I think it's one of his best.
Me too.
Just
Yeah,
because it's one of the movies that really does like highlight him.
yeah, and it really kind of focuses in this film. This is a very physical film in like a very literal way, like literally and also like visually. It's a very physical film, and boy, does this movie really take advantage of the very unique look that Liam Neeson has. I mean, first of all, the man embodies what a human being that most looks like a wolf. It was Liam Neeson.
Right, just like a haggard man.
Yeah, I mean, well, just like the shape of his nose and his sunken eye sockets, like
There's
he's a wolf.
there there's a scene at the end like where he's I think it is like the last scene where he's sitting there
And it's
and he's
zooming
like
in on his
looking,
eyes.
yeah, and he's looking down the wolf and it says like alpha growling. I'm like, that's Liam Neeson growling right now. I'm like, that's what it says in the closed captions. I
Yeah, I
see
saw
it.
that
Like
too.
he's like snarling, dude. Like he's like
Uh-huh.
that's a good that's an apt call. Like he is kind of wolf like.
Not only that, but also like he takes the tape and he like wraps the knife around his hand and he takes those little cocktail bottles and he breaks them off the.
Smacks him.
Bro, he's fucking Wolverine.
Right? He's
He,
got claws.
he literally makes himself into Wolverine. Boy, that would have been a really cool if they used this movie as like an origin story for Logan.
There's something like he got bit by wolves. Well, that's it. You know, he'd have to be attacked by like wolverines.
Yeah, I guess so. I know there's a difference in the animals, but like,
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
I
it's
trust
close.
you that
They're
much.
cousins, right? They're like cousins of the animal world. But no, I agree. I think it's actually one of his. I think it was one of his better performances. He has a couple of moments where he's doing action movie Liam Neeson, which is fine. Um, I largely think that it's. I think the one thing that I definitely kept saying. I wanted to read this off. This is via Wikipedia. Quote, promotion for the Gray in part targeted Christian groups by issuing a film companion, which highlighted the spiritual value of the film. Marketing also partnered with the Weather Network to highlight the hazardous filming conditions. Open Road Films incorporated comments tweeted by film critics to promote the film in the third trailer for The Gray. This was the first time tweets from and Twitter handlers and Twitter handles for professional critics had been used in a film's trailer. So that's an interesting, like, kind of a barrier broken down by this film. But I wanted to say about the marketing of the film. So I wanted to like kind of usher that into the conversation about the marketing of the film. I think this film was let down very intensely by both the marketing, both the three things at once, the trifecta of failed promotion, which is the trailer, the marketing plan for the film, and the marketing timing, I suppose, and most importantly the poster. Now, I love the poster. I think the poster's badass. I think it's sick because Liam Neeson's face is fantastic. Like I said, he looks like a wolf, and the snow and the cold. He looks cold and he's beat up, and he's the man. He's a badass, and this dude embodies action. But I think this movie got sold to the public as being like another like installment of the actions of like an action movie with Liam Neeson, like kind of like another Taken, like Taken but in
Right.
Alaska. And that's just not what this movie is.
Mm-mm.
This is not that. This is a very deep, in, kind of important film for the 21st century. Um, it's technical, it's gritty, and it kind of looks low budget. It's definitely not. I mean, they spent 25 million, so it's not super low budget, but it's also not an exorbitantly expensive film to make. Um, I don't know. I felt like not that it didn't perform well at the box office. I thought it did pretty well, but I just mean it actually got pretty good critical reception too. But I just think when you look at the film and like the way it was kind of presented to the world, especially domestically, maybe it's just a product of like the timing having just come out after Liam Neeson kind of ushered himself into this action role, and this is an action movie, but it's just so much more than that.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to say, the name Otway means means lucky in war in Teutonic.
Yeah, no, I did. I read something about that in the forums
In
about
old Crusader times.
yeah, like nothing is on accident in this film, right?
And
Basically,
also, Otway sounds like Awe, which is the it's what is it, Roman, I believe, and it's that means be well or hail,
oh, okay.
but that's
Yeah,
probably a stretch.
yeah. I mean, it could be. I mean, just because it only sounds like it. I think there's another translation for Otway too that I saw in somewhere in the forums. I wish I had it here in my notes, but I don't. This is the one thing I didn't have. But there was another translation that was like apt to the film, like very very clearly the film. Not a not an accident. Nothing in the like nothing that they intended for the film in terms of production or writing was by accident. And this goes along with like the religious symbolism that happens throughout the film. Um, let's talk about the next big scene in the film after our opening, right? So
The loading up in the plane.
yes, let's talk about the plane scene.
You want to hear my rant about that whole
I
thing as we
absolutely,
start?
I know this, I'm setting you up, Errol. I'm putting it on a tee. Swing away, Captain.
Yeah, so starts off literally a perfect storm. You hear him like trying to, or the guy rushing people, and he's like, "All right, hurry up! Like I need your tickets." Storm coming in. They're trying to get the ice off of the plane. Um,
Yeah.
and they're like, "We need to take off because there's a storm coming," which is all well and everything. But the number one important thing with any kind of like plane operation is making sure like that not only are the windows, like it's not just like a car, you don't just wipe the windows. There are uh there are flight instruments, flight indicators that need to be like processed and made sure that they are all well.
Right.
If you look at that scene, like the whole thing's covered in snow to the point where they're just like trying to get it off. He's like, "Hurry up, we got to get out of here. They got to go." They don't mention it at all. But this is just like my theory. With how iced up it is, there's this one probe on most commercial airliners, and it's called the pitot tube, or the yeah the pito pito probe or pito tube PDOT. Either way, it's just a little. It's a. It's like a just a little cylinder thing with a hole on it, and it's used for measuring airspeed, pressure, and also like altitude. If that little hole is closed, then it can't sense it. You don't get the sensors to the autopilot, and then the plane's not able to do anything.
Oh, okay. So they kind of
So
foreshadow that something's going to happen here.
But so they don't mention or even show anything on the Pit too. But like if you've seen it, like it's just like a little whole thing. Like if you ask me, like it's a perfect storm, and like if that is probably something that happened there too. But eventually, like the way the whole plane crashes is just due to like a massive decompression. Like the wing blows up, like the engines are. It's so eerie. Like so they're sitting there, and we didn't mention it, but there's a theory that this whole movie is just like purgatory.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. Like there's the theory of the purgatory idea is basically that um
He does kill himself.
well, either A, he kills himself or he does die in the crash, and that what's actually happening is he's in purgatory, and the other six men that survived the crash with him all represent like an element of his character. Like one represents fear, one represents masculinity, one like I can't, I don't have the exact list in front of me, but like, and that in each as each character, and that the wolves, so like he, you can always tell when, like at the beginning it looks like a real wolf, where the rest of the film, the wolves are like, they look like
Monsters.
monsters. Yeah, they look like
Yeah.
and they're supposed to represent demons, right? His inner demons, and he's fending them off one by one. But they are, but as a suicidal man, each part of him is being picked off by these demons until it's nothing left but his like alpha male, his alpha male, true like inner self.
He's stripped down to where it's just him.
It's just man, right? It's just only man versus,
He
and the
doesn't have
idea
his
being
like
that when he,
ego or his pity.
right, and the idea that like when he's nose to nose with that final alpha wolf, that is the point where the narrative shifts to man versus self.
Right, he's fighting his demons.
Right. That's and why it's like almost like it's a parallel to the suicidality scene is that when he is nose to nose with that alpha, and it is man versus self, just like him putting the barrel down, putting the barrel of the rifle down, like he chooses to fight. And I think this is like mostly the message of the film is like, a life with purpose and meaning is like worth living and worth fighting for, even when you're struggling. Like it's a very spiritual film in this way. Like I really think it's trying to convey the message that like, um I, I don't necessarily think the film is trying to say you have to have faith to have meaning in life to make it worth living. Although I do think that's kind of part of what, that's part of the delivery system of the message of the film. But I really think the film is aiming to say that like it's a survivor's film, right? But
Yeah,
it's not a literal survive the remote Alaskan wilderness. It's also like survive the darkness of life.
exactly. They're
Uh,
all like looking for like reasons to live the whole time.
yeah, and they also like, as they kind of, interestingly enough, I also noticed that like almost all the men when they die, they're being like welcomed to the afterlife by a loved one.
Hmm.
And a lot of them are, this really hit home for me as a father of two daughters. They all are ushered in. The first thing they think about is their daughters.
So the first guy that dies, he tells him to. He goes like, yeah, think about your daughter. Let her. He's like, let her take you in.
Let her take you.
Um.
Well, can I pause you there for just a quick second? I do want to get to
Hmm.
this because it's very important, and I want you to take us there.
Hmm.
But I want, before we do that, I do want to talk about the actual plane crash scene, like the actual
Okay.
crash, because I don't want to skip
Oh,
ahead of that because I
yeah. No.
really
As I was
think,
going through the notes, I was like, oh wait, this is a whole. Yeah.
yeah, because well, I
So.
want to get there and explain like why he's ushering the man to death, but like, or through death, but that plane crash sequence, just on a film level, not necessarily on a philosophical level, spiritual level, theological level, mostly on just a filmmaking level. That plane crash doesn't show you much, um, like in terms of like, it's not showing you a zoom out of the plane. It's not showing you plane malfunctions. It's not. You're just in the fuselage. You are just in there,
You're like
and
where you should be,
you're right with
or
them,
like where he is.
and everything's kind of zoomed in, and the chaos and the panic is taking over. In my personal opinion, um, other than maybe Flight with Denzel, this is the most realistic and intense plane crash sequence I've ever seen in a film.
This this movie is like one of the sole reasons for like I have a reoccurring nightmare of a plane crash, and I believe heavily it's like due to this.
Dude, I'm so glad you're saying this. This movie fucked with me too. It really did,
Hmm.
because I've been on a plane a couple of times since this film, and every time this goddamn film comes into my head, no matter how
You're
hard
just
I
ready to
try.
kick the person out the seat.
I'm like, get out, because I'm laying down across these seats. I'm strapping in. If this fucker starts to go, I'm ready. I watched Neeson. This is how he survived.
and
Um,
and the thing is, like, while that's happening, like, so like they're all sleeping for the most part, and then like the purgatory thing kind of comes back because like they wake up and it's just freezing. They're like, wait, what's going on? And then like explosive decompression. Liam Neeson's in the safest spot, by the way, by the wing. Uh, that is the most structurally integral or integrated part of the airplane.
okay,
But yeah,
I didn't know
he
that.
goes one further because Flannery's like, don't do that bullshit and tuck your fucking tuck your head between your legs. I like this movie, and I feel like I like it because I like Fight Club.
Yeah, because that
Same thing in
reminded me of
Fight
Fight
Club.
Club too. Yeah, he totally stole a line. He's
Yeah,
like, so you die faster or whatever
yeah. He
Pitt's
was like,
theory is.
uh, what is it? It costs less for a funeral than rehab.
Right. Yeah. Well, they could also like they're not, no, that's not well. That's the idea. That's not what he says. I think he says they'd rather collect. They'd rather they don't want to pay a settlement for survivors. So
Hmm.
they just want you to die.
Right, and he's
They,
like,
they don't want to
dude,
have to like get sued. They'd
they all
rather
get
just
pissed too. They're like, "Fucking, why would you say that?"
oh they get so mad at him.
They're like,
They
yo,
start throwing shit at
they're like,
him.
they're like, whose friend is this? Who likes this guy? Is like someone like honestly, he's like, who's friends with this
Wait,
guy?
in Fight Club or The Gray?
No, in the gray with
Yeah,
Flannery.
Flannery. Yeah, they start throwing shit at him because he's so like he's just
He's like,
mad. Why
someone
would you even
punch
talk
him.
about that? Well, they also, I also find it funny. That's like a thing in the writing of the film is that they're always, whatever they're all afraid of, they want each other to shut the fuck up about. like, even with the wolves, like, stop talking about the fucking wolves. Like,
Oh
as
yeah,
they're
like
like trudging through.
yeah, Berg. He's like, can we talk about something else?
Yeah, yeah. Even Neeson, though, even Liam Neeson
Yeah.
at one point is just like, stop talking about the fucking wolves.
He's like, or else they'll show up everywhere.
Yeah, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Yeah, that's right. So like, I think that's an interesting like. I think they really tapped into like male like masculinity, like a masculine fear. Like that's
Yeah.
totally, absolutely. Every time I've ever been scared, like I just that's my reaction to is just like shut the fuck up, like shut up, just push it down, be a man. You push that shit down. You don't.
But
You
then
pretend it doesn't exist.
that's why Flannery's confused too. He goes, "Oh, I thought you guys were tough." He's like, "We're gonna." They're like, we're probably gonna actually die,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then it does happen.
it's a beautiful scene too. Well, I say beautiful. It's absolutely terrifying. And the scene, um, it cuts. So they're really hitting the turbulence, right? And you think it's about to go down right there, and then the scene cuts, and that is a brilliant filmmaking choice right there to like cut away from like the turbulence and to like because he
Hmm.
really does like settle your nerves for a second. He's just like, oh, you're good because now it's calm and it's dark and everybody's sleeping and they must have gotten through the turbulence. And then all of a sudden, you just start to see everyone's breath
And then
above
the
them.
whole time the engine's just whirring, like it's
Oh
just
my
going
god!
faster and faster. So that means they're probably losing altitude.
Yeah, the cabin is like depressurizing, right? That's why
Right.
all the temperatures dropping. It's freezing in there. Like well, it's also an indication that the electrical system is down because so
Yep.
they don't have a heat source anymore. So something's definitely fucking wrong if the cabin's that cold.
And
And
then so some guy yells, he's like, "Tell the captain to get on the thing and tell us what's wrong." Like he probably can't. Like
yeah,
he's
I
like
mean he's
there.
freaking out. Well, the cockpit's open, and you can see like there's the last thing in the world you want to see. You look into the cockpit. There's a bunch of fucking wires sticking out of the wall, and they're just sparking everywhere.
Yeah.
like it's
You see
you're
bam,
just
bam.
it's your worst. If you're on a flight and you see that, just start praying. That's all you can do at that point.
So one thing that I will say here to alleviate anyone who also has seen the movie or they plan on seeing it, or if they haven't, they're like, dude, that's just crazy. Like I don't like plane crashes. I won't do it.
Yeah,
One of the greatest achievements in like human history, probably only second to the like worldwide trade, is the scale of aviation that we have and like the how perfect it is.
right.
It's almost like a near zero chance of you having an accident.
Yeah,
And
it's absurd. What's the statistic? It's like there are statistically you like and they've done like full scale statistical
well,
probability models. Like you are
I,
way more likely to die driving your car or
oh
driving
yeah,
transit.
I believe other than trains, it's the safest form of transportation over distance.
And it's not close.
No,
It's not
no,
close.
it's not close at
You're
all. Like
like you could fly, and there are people who there you could fly every day for like 100 years, and you still have less than like a 0.00 something percent chance of perishing in a crash. That's how infrequent it is for a plane to malfunction and cause human death. Like
and there's so much stuff.
fail safes,
Yeah, that it's yeah,
especially now.
1 in 800 million flights.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you flew every day, how many days do you live? If you flew every day, twice a day, you could fly 10 times a day for the entirety of your life, and you're still going to probably beat those odds. I'm
Yeah.
almost definitely going to beat those odds.
Yeah. So on top of that, if a plane does totally lose its engines and like their wings don't rip off, it's a glider.
Yeah,
Like
and well,
it
they
is
also
made to fly.
yeah, exactly. And not only that, well, you have like, although it does, you do hear like, I've heard of, like lowering standards to get pilots, because there's like a pilot shortage or whatever. Which you never like to hear that, but like at the end of the day, those guys, I'm not downplaying their abilities and their skill sets. Like I'm sure that they're very qualified and they have to go through a very rigorous. They have to log like an unrelenting amount of flight hours to actually like commercially
Yeah,
fly a
before you
plane.
even like realistically considered.
Right. And I think that at the end of the day, the way that these planes are operating is like autopilot is like a literal sense. Like
I
they're going to start
believe like
probably using artificial intelligence for a lot of this, for a lot of
I
the
believe you
technology to
can
keep
like
them.
borderline it's like there's autopilot, but there's like an auto landing too. Like you just need to
Yeah.
put in what they
Depends
tell
on
you
the
to
size
do.
of the plane, of
Oh
course.
yeah, that too. But
Like
yeah,
little
there's
ones, I actually my work is where I work is literally adjacent to an airport, the Syracuse airport here in Syracuse, New York, and I watch planes land basically every day of my life. I watch them. I don't actually watch them hit touchdown, but I watch like they touch down just over a tree line right across the street from my work. So I'm seeing. I could throw a baseball and hit a plane once a day if I wanted. That's how low they are, and like you can definitely tell that like when the puddle jumpers in the summertime are landing, because guys are just guys who have some money or who are just flying around for fun, and they got their pilot's license and they're just looking to have just looking to maybe fly around the Finger Lakes in New York State or whatever. You see them land and you can tell the difference. Like the plane is so much lighter, you can actually see the wings kind of waving back and forth, like um whereas like a commercial airline, they're so smooth, and like they do not waver. It's truly robotic the way that they like approach a landing strip. It's quite amazing.
mm,
And I'm telling this to probably listeners who've probably been well aware and have seen plenty of flights land, but uh,
yeah, they I like how there's more checks. There's legit more checks and balances in flight safety than there is like surgery.
oh, definitely, and way
But it makes
way less
sense.
error,
It kind of makes sense because you're dealing with more lives. Because
way more.
at first I'm like, you would think that they'd care more because it's like literally like your wrist deep in there. But no, there's more. You got more lives to worry about.
It's
That's a
not
lot harder to explain.
I mean, it's even worse than that. Like, I believe that one of like the top five causes of death in the world is medical error,
Yep.
misdiagnosis, or like unsanitary practices, whatever it is. It's like it's something that it's an error by a medical practitioner that led to death. That's one of the leading
Malpractice.
causes of death in the world.
What malpractice is about.
But anyway, let's circle back to the gray. That plane crash sequence is harrowing, and when they do crash, and Liam
As it's
Neeson,
going, Liam Neeson doesn't pass out until he's upside down.
yeah, literally, it forces him to. He's
Yeah,
hanging
he's
on,
upside down, and that's the last thing. Like that could have been it. That
and
could have
he's
been end
fucking
of the movie.
exposed too. Like at that point,
It's
the
so
plane,
freezing,
yeah,
freezing.
and the plane had absolutely been uh, what's the term I get, like dismembered almost. I don't know how you like completely ripped open.
It had an explosive decompression.
Yeah, so like the part of the fuselage had actually been detached, and he's completely exposed to the elements as it's crashing. I wonder. It kind of makes it seem like he was ejected um,
Right,
from
because he doesn't like strap himself to but that's also, if you ask me, that leans right towards the purgatory thing, because
potentially. Right,
he just wakes up in like a vast blank, cold. There's nothing around. It's
dude. I
just
don't know how they did it too. Like when he emerges from that snow, it genuinely looks like his head had been buried in ice cold temperature snow, like for for many minutes. Like his face was so red and like it really looked. I mean, once again, I think the magic trick of this film and Joe Carnahan's approach to it is the like hyper realism of everything.
Yeah,
Just
and that's the
everything
thing
feels
too.
so
Like
real.
it's it like in Liam Neeson's character is a jack of all trades. Like these people, like they're ignorant at times, but like they all like know like what's going on for the most part. They have a if they all don't know, then at least one person in the group has a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like how that plays out through the whole thing. And you get like a in the first one of the first instances of that, right when he goes over the ledge, he's like, "Oh my god, it's awful." He's like plane crash. He runs in, he just starts trying to help people.
Immediately.
I believe he finds Flannery, and Flannery's like, "Oh my god, it hurts." Like, "Oh my god, this is
Fucking
bad. It
crash.
hurts
He's
so
like the
bad."
plane crash, man. The plane
Yeah,
crash. It's in pieces. Well, the one guy's in. No, no, no. That's not Flannery.
yeah,
Flannery's
yeah. No, that's the second guy.
Flannery
So,
knows what happened. It's
but
the
he's
second guy,
hurt. Yeah, he so Flannery's like hurt, I believe, and he's like, "Oh my
right?
god, it hurts so bad."
And then
And
and then
Liam
the
Neeson,
one big
he's like,
guy. It's the big
"Yeah,
Hispanic guy who's like kind of like rocking back and forth in
oh
disbelief.
yeah, he's in shock." But yeah,
He's in total shock. Yeah,
Liam Neeson goes to Flannery. He goes, "You're hurt." He goes, "It hurts." He's like, "It's good that it hurts
meaning you're alive.
because it well that and there's no major nerve damage. If you
Right,
could
right. Yeah.
feel what's going on
You
down
didn't
there,
break
then
your spine. You didn't break your neck.
right,
Like
exactly. You could feel it, it hurts, but like you could also not feel it, and
you
then
won't.
that is a problem.
Yeah.
So but I love it because he's like, it's good that it hurts. And then Flannery goes, it's good that it hurts. He goes, I'm fucking fabulous.
Then I'm fucking fabulous. Yeah, that's
He's just like,
right.
he's like, oh, it's good. Oh, if you now that you mention if that's the
I guess
case,
I'm fucking.
dude, I'm
I guess I'm
fine.
all aces then.
But yeah, so he goes to the other guy and yeah, just total shock. He doesn't even like know what's going on. He's like you're not hurt, but he's like but you're in shock. He's like you got to get up. I need your help. He's like yeah, but like where's the pilots? He's like
The
the
pilots
flight
are
police is.
gone.
He's like get it together. Come on. And then like after they kind of group up everyone in the plane, there's the guy who's just dying.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Yeah, just
that's
straight
that's
up just dying.
yeah. That's the scene that's like so that kind of I think that scene really and we're gonna dive into it now. I just want to I'm gonna kind of tee you up again, Errol. I think that scene, the scene of which there's a, like I can't remember what the character's name is, but I don't even think that you really get his name. But he's not internally bleeding, externally bleeding. He has an
Yeah, he's just
external wound,
looking down
and
and he's like, this is a lot of blood.
it's his yeah. He starts realizing how much blood he's losing, and Liam Neeson ushers him through the process of death in a way that no action film, no thriller, no dramatic film, no film has ever done it this way. And it's once again the hyper realism of the film.
It's
And I
just so like cut and dry. Like he's like
it
straight
is
up, this is
you're
how it's
dying.
happening.
You're going
This
to
is
die.
what's gonna happen.
Tells him you're going to die. And
And
I really think that caps. I just want to say this, and I'll let you take it from there. Um, this caps off the first. What I think this all takes place. Everything we described for the most part. This all takes place within the first 27 minutes or so, 28 minutes of the film. Like no more than 35 minutes or so into the film that you've experienced all of this intense like film experience, full experience. Like you are immersed, and this movie is pounding you with like emphatic sense, like your senses overload, sensational overload. Like you are just totally assaulted by the film in a visual way, in a philosophical way, an emotional way. And I would say I would hazard to say it's probably the greatest first 30 minutes of any action film, maybe in the last 20 years. I mean, would that be safe to say?
I don't think there's not a lot of other movies that have just like enthralled me.
Oh
Like
yeah,
like I've never just been like, oh my god, what's going on? Like in just like every single turn, it still has that intensity and only gets more intense.
it really does. It grabs you by the throat in those for in this. So I say it caps it off. I don't mean that it ends because the intensity starts to rebuild. I think it
No,
just gets
yeah,
a
they
you
cap
get a
it off and then they
reset.
shake the bottle.
Yeah, they do it exactly. They shake it up quickly and then kind of reset and then start the slow build again, and then they give you little doses of intensity that kind of build more and more and more, and the film continues to just be beautiful and shocking and violent and action packed all the way through the rest of the film as well. But the first 30 minutes leading up to the death scene with Liam Neeson is unmatched in modern action films. But Erroll, why don't you explain what happens in the way that he kind of ushers this gentleman through the experience of dying? Like, what does he tell him?
So, yeah, so how like what you were saying earlier, like this movie does a really good job at like the realism. He walks up to the guy and they're like, help him, like he needs help, and he's like, help me too, and he's like, this is a lot of blood. He's like, I know that, like, and it seems like he's not like confident, but he's like, I know that this should be on the inside, like I need to.
Right. Yeah.
um what he has there, and I think they like hint at it. He has, and it happens to people like right before they actually die, or if they think they're going to die. Like if it happens all the time in medical terminology, it's called a sense of impending doom.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This
You'll
makes
get
sense.
this feeling that like something bad is going to happen, like it's going to happen, because it is like you would like that's your body like freaking out, and it's like fight or flight, like every you just get juiced.
It comes
So
back in the film later, right? Like this a character experiences this exact thing. The impending doom is experienced by another character later in the film. When he's by the riverside, he's
oh
like, I
yeah, but
can't. He's
that's
like, he tells him, I can't even explain it with words, man. He literally
right.
says that to one of the other survivors.
But not yeah, but it's just not as like visceral though, because this is it's like it's a physical reaction. You literally, or sorry, it's a medical medical response to trauma, is just the sense of impending doom. And he goes, something's wrong, this doesn't feel right. And what else, he says like a couple other things. um Yeah, so he's pretty much just sitting there. He's like, yeah, something doesn't feel right. He's like, I don't know what's good. He's like, I don't like this, blah blah
And
blah.
he's kind of just he's spinning his wheels, and then Liam Neeson
Right.
takes over and just tells
Then
him.
he's like, he's like, this is what's gonna happen. He's like, you're gonna die. He's like, think of a good time. He's like, do you have someone to care about? He says, my daughter. Um, I don't know his daughter's name, but whenever I watch that, I could have swore that he mouths "mama" as he dies, because he has this look in his eye. He's like, what? Like he didn't expect something, and then he goes like, he's like, mama. At least that's what I thought I seen, because he's
Could
like, oh, I'm
be.
like here with my daughter, blah blah blah. And he's like, wait a second, and he's like, oh, ma, like ma.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean,
he
either way, it's always because this movie is all it's all men, right? It's all
yeah,
hard nosed, oil working men who've been away from their families, who miss the women in their lives. This is, I
yeah,
think, it really resonates with me as like a, and really especially
girl's house.
this. Well, yeah, and this week has been tough. I've been working a lot. I haven't seen my kids much at all this week, and or my wife for that matter. And it's like, I have two daughters, so this movie really just like this part of the film really sunk its teeth into me. Not to personalize it too much, but like I
You want
really
to use the
felt it
wolf
because
analogy?
I haven't seen my kids all week. Like basically, I've seen them for like an hour a day on each end of the day at best, and it's like, you get that it's a week. These guys are going probably months without seeing their kids, and some men have it even worse. But like they miss the women in their lives, and every time one of them is killed or is dying, and it's interesting that you really do get to experience all of their deaths, and they all seem to be kind of like they all kind of die. Nobody dies like instantly. Everybody kind of,
No,
well, not totally instantly, but like I guess when it's artistically displayed, it's not instant. Like you get to it's like the director in his visualized style slows the death down, and you get to experience it in a bit of a way. Like you experience what their last thoughts are, or what they want their what you imagine them to be thinking about.
it's
And every
awful.
time, well, I don't want to finish this point.
Yeah.
And then, but every time it's the women in their lives that usher them into the afterlife. Every time.
Oh, oh yeah, it's always they're always looking for that like femininity, that familiarity towards the
Mhm.
end.
It's who
But
they miss. It's who they love and who they're without. And it's also just like it's the contrast of like the hyper masculine aspect of the film
that
met
they
with like
put on.
met with the beautiful feminism of a woman on the other side. Like it's there's a contrast in the two that is like very potent.
Right. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um. And then like so right after that they're like, all right, we got to get our shit and like get out of here. Um. Burke's in hysterics just because he's still like trying to figure out what's going on. He's just laughing. He's like he cannot comprehend what's going on. Someone's like, what do we do with all the bodies? I think Diaz, he goes, fuck the bodies. And he's actually right there, if you ask me.
As an atheist, yeah. I
No,
mean,
no, no, not even as an atheist. I could be a full
as a survivalist,
yes. You
is
don't want to, you don't know the caloric intake and output is not guaranteed.
right.
You cannot waste
Conserve
calories
energy.
moving bodies like but you're not going to make you're going to be right there with it. Like
Right.
there's it's you can't do it. Like they do move them later in the movie, but that is when they like get a base, like get water, get food, and then they need to move the bodies away so the wolves don't fucking think it's like easy pickings.
Right.
But that
Not only
is
that, but like he also mentions that like when they think that they're in the den or they're close to the den, he's like, they're not here to hunt. They're not here to hunt. They're here to kill.
they're like why'd they kill that one guy or
They're
why'd
like
they
they
eat
just want to
him?
kill
And
you
they're
because they're
yeah
threatened. They're not trying to eat. They're trying to like kill you because they're threatened by you, but
yeah
because you're close to the den.
they're like they ate him. And he's like no, they killed him.
Yeah, that's fucking
Um,
sick. That
but
was a
that's when you
great
think
line.
about it too. Like I didn't even catch it the first time. And I was like, kind of, I was like, oh yeah, kind of got it there. On the other end, you end up learning from Liam Neeson. But either way, so the guy's like going out to pee when he gets attacked, right? Like he's
Right.
going
Yep.
out. They get
Yep.
like the base established. He's pissing on the 2 hour break, and he gets attacked. Those wolves are like smelling the piss. They're like, this is another apex predator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, that's actually a great point. I never thought about that. Like that.
Yeah,
That's when
like
they first attack because this dude's like
they're quote
literally
unquote marking their territory and
terror.
they're like
Yeah,
they're like this is 30 miles, this is our den, like
that
what
is
are
a
you doing here?
literal. It's a literal territorial pissing. That is
Yeah,
an
they're having a
actual.
pissing match.
It's quite literally. No, it's true.
And then before they leave, Liam like or sorry John's like we have to, he's like we got to go for the tree line, and he's like why, and he's like they fucking pissed all over this place. He's like it's theirs.
Yeah, it is. Well, he also is and it is kind of it's a 50-50 coin flip. He's saying get to the tree line because he doesn't want to be the
Exposed.
well, he exposed A and B because he thinks that he wants you got to move if you're going to move away thinking that you could be in the den because they've already attacked right there. You
Hmm.
assume that they must be close to the den. How close you don't know, but you're definitely too close if they're already attacking by the plane. So he's like, we got to move one direction. Let's move towards the trees because if we're moving, if we got to move any direction, we're going towards the trees.
He's like we got to find south and we got to get walking.
Because well, they could also get temperature too, or they could or shelter. I should say
Hmm.
to kind of, if you've got trees, you can get some, you can get limbs, you can get you can there's shrubbery, you can put together some kind of shelter to keep you out of the cold and also fire. So like there's more like I mean this all makes perfect survivalistic sense, but you're running the risk of like moving closer to the den, which you find out at the end of the film. That's exactly what they
Yeah,
fucking
they
did.
crashed within 30 miles.
Yeah, but also what's crazy is that it's almost like fate brought him to the center of the den.
It's like he needed. It's like he wanted to die, and then it's like I'm gonna
Yeah.
test you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was almost like it was like the gods pushed
Hmm.
him pushed him all the way into the act like the epicenter of like destruction.
He
And
was there. He was like down on his knees, and he was like, "I wish I was dead." And then like
yeah,
monkey's paw.
do something, do something. He's calling. He's literally calling. See, in my
I
interpretation, it was almost like his faith was being restored because he was at least at that point he
at
was
least he
talking to God.
started to believe.
He
Yeah,
was
brought it
talking to
back.
God. He
Yeah.
was like actually talking to him. Like his faith had truly been restored. Because if you're truly not like unfaithful or
You wouldn't even
non-faithful,
bother.
you wouldn't even bother. Yeah, exactly. Who are you talking to? Like the
Hmm.
fact that he was calling
It's
for
like it's always been in the
savior.
back of his head.
Do you
In
think he
the
was calling for? Hold on, I want to ask you. Do you think he was calling for his for God to annihilate him or for God to save him?
no, I think he just wanted a sign that it was all worth it. Like there
Just
was
show me
something.
anything and I'll die now happy.
Well, like show me
or
anything and
content.
I'll believe. Like I'll know that there
Oh,
was a
he does
reason
say
for
that
this.
too. I'll believe till the day I die. He even says, "Yeah,
Right.
yeah." He just wanted a sign of existence.
Um but yeah, before that guy gets his sack ripped off, they find a girl by a fire, and he's like, "Oh, snap." And she's just kind of sitting there. She's getting ate by a wolf.
Oh yeah.
And then he gets sacked by a wolf and flies like a foot into something
Yep.
and like gets bit on the leg. And then, like, so they end up like getting him away and stuff. And like one of the guys, he's like, "Was what is it? What were those? Was that coyotes?" I was like,
Like,
"Bro,
bro, do you know the size
shut
of
up,
that? Is a quarter of the size of a
coyotes."
coyote.
They wouldn't have came out here if they wouldn't have sacked me up against the tree. They wouldn't even have looked at us if they're coyotes.
Bro, you would have been more you would have been closer to the truth if you had said, "Bro, what was that? A dinosaur?"
Really?
You'd have been way closer. It would have been a better guess for you to assume that was a motherfucking prehistoric dinosaur than a
Was it
coyote.
was that a moose?
Was that a moose? Bro, have you ever seen moose? Moose are
Yeah, actually,
insane.
I think moose are
They're the
technically
size of a
more deadly.
fucking. They're literally the size of like a small garage. They're fucking
I
enormous.
think they're technically more deadly than wolves. Like per year, more people die from
Yeah,
mooses than
because they're
wolves.
super like they're super territorial and they're dumb fast.
That and if you hit a moose in a car, or if you
Oh
hit a
yeah,
wolf in a car, you hit that moose.
yeah. That thing's gonna spaz out with its fucking giant antlers and it's
Even though you could hit it and it
cave
could
your
die, but
car
that
in.
thing's coming. Yeah, exactly. That thing's gonna take the top off like a
It's like
goofy.
driving into a fucking. It's like driving into a brick wall.
Right. Um. But yeah, like so. Right. Oh, also like right before the dude gets gelded, for lack of a better word. I think Diaz, he's like looting the bodies, like desecrating the corpses, and Otway's like, "I'll start beating your fucking ass," and then like in the
That
next
line is
five
great.
seconds, yeah,
He's like, in the next five
yeah.
seconds, I'm gonna start beating the shit out of you.
He's like, "You're gonna swallow a lot of blood for a fucking billfold."
That was great
Yeah,
writing,
and he's
wasn't
like,
it? That was
"Fine."
great writing. He said, "All right."
He's like, he's like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Like in the next fight, we're going to fight,
Yeah,
and like
no, he
I'm
didn't say
going.
we're gonna fight. He says, "I'm gonna start beating the
Yeah,
shit out of you." That's what's
I'm gonna
gonna
start
happen.
beating. I'm gonna start beating the shit out of you in the next 5 seconds. And you're gonna swallow a lot of blood for a fucking billfold. He just throws it. He's fine.
Yeah.
But then it's funny.
I mean,
So
Liam
that's the thing
Neeson
too.
is like 6'6". Like
And
I don't blame him.
and that character wanted to take the wallets when it was for a selfish reason. He was like, I want to take these. And then when Liam Neeson goes, we should take the wallets. So for the pictures, the guy goes, "You guys, I'm not gonna waste my fucking time." Like you wanted them before, now you don't want to fucking help like
Yeah,
get the wallets because it's
yeah.
not like about the
Diaz comes around at the end, but man, he's got, and I don't like. He's obviously the whole point of him is to be kind of unlikable. He's like the ego. He's like the
right.
ego person in the. You got to have one. Even in a
You got to
traditional.
have a heel.
Right, you got to have a heel, but also if we're going to go with the theory that they all represent a part of Otway, he would represent like he would represent both fear and ego because like he's very clearly afraid, and Otway calls him on it, and I don't know, um, even the even in the sense that they're trying to accomplish that with the character, I think some of his writing's a little weak. It's either the
Yeah,
writing
me
or the
too. He's
acting.
almost like
He's got some
it's
lines. He's very childish.
he's yeah, like needlessly like a prick. I'd be like, dude, like you could die like right now.
I don't know, and he's also just trying to be a little. I mean, he does. I will say this: it is very realistic because, like, I've worked with some blue collar guys that say stupid shit like that. This is fuck city, population 5 and dwindling. Like, first of all, like you're literally just survived a plane crash, and like these are like the cheeky little like like shit eating grinned lines that you're stoking up. Like you
This
wouldn't
is
do
why you're
that.
alive.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be trying to be like, and I guess that outweigh calls mine. Like you're scared, and so you're trying to like puff your chest out or whatever. But like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I thought the actor who played Diaz does not show any of his like acting chops until towards the end.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I
Oh,
thought he
and
could
then
be better.
right after that too, he finds those shotgun shells at combat multiplier.
Oh yeah, that was sick. That was
That
sick.
is sick.
That
That is
was
a really
fucking
cool
sick.
thing.
Brilliant.
Well,
Yeah.
the whole how they implemented those. Um, but oh yeah, when they make it to the snow line, after Flannery gets wrecked, when they're like all running there and they get the fire, uh, you know how Liam or sorry Otman go or Otway goes. I messed up like Flannery did. Otway goes. Um, they're like, what was that? Like you hear the wolves going back and forth, and then you just hear like a woof, and then like a like a whine,
Oh yeah.
and he's like, what the heck was that? And he's like, someone challenged the alpha, and he put him down.
Oh
I,
yeah. That happens at the end too, where they all clear out so that Liam Neeson
right? Yeah,
also
they're
can
like
throw
not at
down.
the 1-1.
Happens again. Well, I was
So
thinking this. I just had a thought about this, and I wonder what you think about this. Maybe each character actually represents an element, a different element of fear, like logical fear. Because I'm thinking, what's the significance of? I mean, I get that, like, so his like deceased wife continuously shows up with them lying in the bed in like this heavenly way, right, all throughout the
mhm.
film, and I get that, like, the point is to show her like healthy, 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 and then you find out it's a hospital bed and that she's dying and that she died. But she also always says to him, "Don't be afraid." And I wonder if, like, if fear is like like that's the elemental component of the characters of each character, because then they have too many conversations about fear and for it only to apply to simply Diaz alone.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that's like a component. I don't know.
Well, they
I'm
all
theorizing.
die in like different ways too, so it would kind of make
True.
sense.
Yeah, that's actually true. And they all die in unique ways, and they all like all of their deaths are artistically displayed for sure as well.
Like the
Um,
first one would be the death of his innocence. Um, the second one, I guess, would be like the death of like almost like the second and the third would be like the death of like femininity or like intercourse, I guess, because like he watches the girl die, and then the guy dies on his shift too, and he gets his dick ripped off by the wolves.
yeah, something like that. I mean, they don't explicitly show that, but like, yeah, I mean,
No, it does. He's pissing, and then they like
wolf
attack him,
grabs him
and
by
then
the dick.
another one, yeah, then another one bites him on the leg, and the guy
I
he
think you're
doesn't yell
right.
or anything, he whimpers. That's why they're like, we didn't even hear him. He gets bit on the dick. He's like as you would, like if you
Yeah,
just get. It's not even
yeah.
like it, dude. They like it's his whole grundle, like they like pelvis, like whoosh, he's like. I
Um,
was like, damn.
I love. Well, I also love another line that alludes to the survivors not actually being truly human, and them actually just like Otway survives and he's the only one that survives, or he's in purgatory or whatever. The Another line is the opening line that indicates that, like, they didn't that these men are figments of his imagination, or they represent elements of his persona. Is the opening line, like he says, quote, "A job at the end of the world, a salaried killer for a big petroleum company. I don't know why I did half the things I've done, but I know this is where I belong, surrounded by my own ex-cons, fugitives, drifters, assholes." And then the line right here: "Men unfit for mankind."
Yep.
So, like, these men, like, that's an illusion, or a piece of foreshadowing that these men weren't fit to live.
Right.
They weren't fit for the human race. These are misfits. These are toys in the box.
People, misfits, like misplaced people,
Yeah.
neither fit for heaven or hell.
Yes. 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 Yeah. You're grasping where I'm grasping. I mean,
Hmm.
another line I really love from Otway is during that like kind of meltdown he's having at God. He says, "Prove it, fuck faith, earn it," which is like, I've never heard anyone like speak to God that way.
Right.
Like, earn
Yeah.
it. Like, damn, you
He's
need
like
to earn my
he,
faith.
yeah,
Like, God.
he's like I've done like so much. Like I prove stuff. Like he's like you need to prove anything to me right now.
And
Yeah, that's
remember, this
crazy.
is an actor. This is an actor who is putting this performance on. You see it in his fucking eyes too, man. Like, and this is what makes this movie so special. Is like, and it makes me wonder, like, why. he took this role. And I mean, I don't know, maybe the work helped distract him from. But I mean, his wife was 45 years old when she died. I mean, it's not like she was like old, and it was a freak accident. It happened fast. And this film came out less than 2 years. You got to imagine he went into the production of this film probably less than a year after his wife died. It wasn't the
Hmm.
only film he made either, according to his filmography. Um, but like this movie this is the one that must have hit close to home, especially given the context of like the plot, in that he had a wife, he has a deceased wife in the film, and the director's like urging him to like channel his grief. You fucking see that, right? Does that, for you to, I mean, you didn't know that. I don't, were you aware of that
No,
watching
I
the film?
didn't, but like it definitely something feels
It,
almost off about
the fucking
like
hype. This is what I'm saying.
it seems
Hyper
so
realism.
authentic.
Yeah, the authenticity of this film is truly second to none, and like it is a great Liam Neeson performance, and I think a lot of that has to do with maybe what he was going through in his personal life for sure.
Yeah, no, that's I don't think that's too far of a stretch at all. But yeah, when they make it into the forest and they make that fire and they hear that other wolf get like put down and uh Otway goes he goes it was a challenge and then he put him down. The guy's like I think we should just like take him on right now or whatever. And he goes, "No, we're going to do what they're going to do. We're going to do what they're doing and just try to pick them off one by one." I think the wolf that challenged the alpha was like same thing that that guy was saying. He's like, "Yo, let's jump him. Let's just do it right now." And the alpha's like, "No, like we're gonna pick him off." And he's like, "Nah, like let's do this." And then he
Yeah.
put him down. Like
Well,
I
I did
think
notice a little bit later in the film when they're like, it's down to
2v2.
yeah, you saw that too, and it was 2v2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like chasing him up the river, and it's 2-on-2, and like this is strategic, right? This is like it's
Oh
also just
yeah.
like it's each one of their demons. Like if the wolves represent the demon theory of the film.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and
And
man, what a way
that's a
he
safe thing
goes.
too.
What was that? I'm sorry. What was that character's name? Do you remember? Burke. No, not Burke.
Heinrich.
Heinrich. Heinrich. That's right. The way Heinrich goes is fucking awful, man. Like no,
It's
I mean
probably
nobody
like
dies pleasantly, but Jesus
but
Christ.
that it's yeah, that scene it's almost comedic how like awful it is.
Yeah,
Like because
it's
he
hard.
goes to like he immediately like he's like trying to figure out what's happening. He's like, what are you doing down there?
Yeah.
He's like trying to like
What the
pull him up.
fuck are you doing down there?
Right, he's trying to
He's
pull him
very
up.
frustrated. Yeah.
Realizes that he's stuck, and he's like, oh, I gotta do the buddy breathing. So goes to do it, and the guy just like shakes
Fucking
him off, and he
breathe.
starts squeezing. He's like, stop.
Stop
Hold
fucking
your breath,
breathing. Hold your breath.
hold your breath.
And well,
And he goes to do it
my wife
again.
is Errol. You know this. Ashley's she's a trained lifeguard, and she was
Mhm.
just like she can't watch that stuff because she's just like, what are you doing? Like, stop, stop pulling up. Like you have to go down. You have to go
Right,
down.
like you have to
You have
like
to like stop
get the
flipping out.
obstruction.
Yeah, stop flipping out and go get the obstruction
Yeah,
out of the way
he's just
before
trying to break
then
his
lift.
leg.
Yeah,
And
he's
then,
trying
but
to
they
force it
also Heinrich, he's just screaming, and he's like, "Stop!"
because I don't
Like
think he
I
knows. He doesn't even know that he's like
no, he's absolutely panicking.
yeah, he's flipping
He's
out.
past it. He didn't. He just going and then stuck.
Well, I say,
Um,
and I also just mentioned that like nobody in the film dies peacefully, and that is actually true. Even though Diaz chooses to like he like quits. He's like, I emptied out my tank. Like
well,
he's just like
they
he's
all
dying.
seem peaceful. What about the one guy when they jump across the ridge and it snaps? He
Oh,
hits
and
every single branch on the way down, and he's like, "Oh, this is bad." He coughs up blood. He's like, "This," but then he feels his daughter.
well, I know. Well, yes. I mean, my point is simply that they die violently when they
Oh yeah,
actually
he's
once
getting
they
it's not really his daughter. It's just the wolves biting his face. But
yeah. Well, it's not even that. It's once they've passed over to like the afterlife, it seems peaceful. But like what's going on in real life is violent and vicious and awful. And I say that because Diaz is chooses that like beautiful. I loved that scene. That scene is like imprinted in my mind because it's a painting. I mean, it's an unbelievable shot as he's sitting on a log next to that river with the beautiful snow-capped mountains in the background, and it's just beautiful. This beautiful scene, and he's just like, "This is." He's like,
yeah,
"I'll
it's
never get
stunning.
anything this beautiful. Nothing as beautiful as this is waiting for me anywhere else." So he chooses to die there, and they do that. Carnahan does this beautiful thing where he does this like it's like a tracking zoom shot, right? Like I don't even know how he does it. It's like it's zooming. It's very hypnotic, right? Like
Zooming out and zooming in at the same time.
kind of. It's not even that. It's almost like the camera is lowering as it's zooming. So
You
you're
want to know? You want to know like what I got from that?
that's the wolf.
Yeah, like it
Yeah, that's what it
transitions
feels like.
that like thing into like the wolves. Like you're the wolves
And you
creeping
hear
in.
them, and you hear them coming too. Like you hear the
Right, you hear like
branches
the
breaking.
thing snap, and he's kind
Yeah,
of like, ooh. Then he's like,
dude, that
I'm not
sound.
scared.
Listen, I've done hikes in the Adirondack Mountains in the dead of winter. During actually, I've been unfortunately like on a I've been like 3,800 feet up, like in the middle of a blizzard before, and like I'm gonna tell you something right now. There's nothing more like alarming than hearing like a bunch of branches breaking, like because it's. And here's the other thing too in the wilderness, like I'll say this too is like because I've done a couple of those winter hikes. There's nothing I've probably said this a million times. I've never said it on the podcast, but I'll say it, and I've maybe even am reiterating it to you or regurgitating a bit. But like, there is nothing more deafening than like intense snowfall in like the remote wilderness. It is literally deafeningly
Oh,
quiet.
well,
The
it dampens
silence.
everything.
It's yeah, it like compresses the sound, but it's also loud. Like the silence is loud. You can hear the silence. I don't know how to describe it. It's very bizarre. It's a very bizarre experience. And like when you hear branches breaking, like it is so fucking loud, and it like there's something very like in a there's something very primal or like evolutionary about like when you hear noises in the woods when you're like vulnerable, like
Well, that's the
something's
thing too.
all the
It's
wires in your brain start like lighting up.
because realistically, if you hear like a something break in the woods or like a twig break and it's getting closer, like herbivores don't, they avoid everything.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
you hear
Oh
something
yeah.
getting closer, it's because
That's
it is interested in
that's
you.
a motherfucking carnivore. That's a meat eater coming your
It's
way.
something that is not scared, and
Yeah.
that is the last thing you want to be like, dealing with in the woods is something that isn't scared.
Yeah. I mean, he elects for that like beautiful. Um, what he is, I think he knows it's not going to be a peaceful death, but maybe he's hoping he dies before the wolves get to him. Doesn't seem like that's happening because
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
seems like they
damn.
basically circle him as soon as the other men have like started to move on up the river. Um, Erroll, is there any? I hate to close. It's such a great film, and we could talk at length, but we do have a bit of a schedule to keep on the pod. So, is there anything else major you want to hit before we take a quick break and then close things out with our rating?
Yeah, honestly, the only other one would be Burke's death for like the
Oh, right.
realism, like he's like coughing the whole time.
Yeah, the hypoxia.
Yeah, and then like so he's sleeping, and then like he just wakes up and he's like he was like, "Did you guys see Emma?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "What? Who are you?" And then they're like, "Oh yeah, man. Like, Joe, she's not here yet. Like, it'll be fine." And then he's like, "Well, tell her that I'm here or I'm coming." And then he passes back out, and then they're like, "What the heck is that?" And then the guy who like knows Burke the most, he's like, "It's hypoxia. Like, he's not getting enough oxygen to his brain. He's hallucinating. And he was hallucinating his sister who died when he was a child."
Yeah. Once again, this is what I'm saying is like it's like it's the masculinity with the femininity like
But also
contrasted.
the realism of that. When my grandfather was like when he was on his deathbed, he like hallucinated like some of like his cousins or someone. Like it was like he thought like his like children were like his like he said dad or something. He's like, "Oh, like dad's here."
It's so
And
interesting because like you do well. We're going to talk about this later in the month. Especially when we have a podcast that we're in the midst of. We're in the beginning stages of developing a podcast that's going to. I'll announce it now. We're going to talk about psychedelic medicine as a treatment and as an experiential treatment in that manner. And like I'm just going to say, like this is what a lot of hallucinogenic psychedelic medical treatments are. This is what they're kind of as a treatment for trauma. Like this is what's happening to a lot of people who are seeking help for mental health or addiction or whatever it is. like this is what they're experiencing. They're experiencing something very similar when um, under the condition of one of these hallucinogens, is that they're constant. They're re-engaging with like deep memories that have been buried, and they're like resurfacing like involuntarily in a psychedelic experience. And like this film kind of reaches at this death thing like as a similar experience, where it's almost like childhood or something peaceful is kind of like a part of the experience of death, or something that happens in the neurochemistry of the brain.
Right.
um
Well, they even say that like it washes over you and it's warm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. um that's good. Any other things you want to hit? Remember, we can always
What
do a part
else?
two. This is such a
Oh
great
yeah.
film. I would never close the chapter on this, close the book
Oh
on
yeah.
this
No,
film.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The one thing I do like is like pretty much every time he reads that poem, there was like a loud noise or like it was the wolves, and then he does it another time where he just reads it when they're around the fire, and then the thunder booms,
Yeah.
and then he does it at the end, and
Yep.
then like there's like the wolf snarl.
Yeah, it is. It's a call to fight. Is like it's like a call to continue. It's a survivalist. It's like a survivalist mantra, a
Hmm.
survivor's mantra almost. Um,
I tell myself no, I've been butchering it for the last like decade or so, but I've always told myself like live today, die today.
yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, that's what it is. That's what the film is getting at. Is that like
Well, it's pretty much what is it? It's uh the Latin. I should know this. Seize the day. What is it?
oh, carpe
Stick.
diem.
Yeah, carpe diem.
Yeah, yeah, it is that in essence. In essence, I mean, the film in its context kind of reaches a little bit deeper than that. But well, before we close out, I wanted to get your take on the way it ends. A lot of people were not like thrilled with the abrupt ending without. And what I was reading is that it actually there is a fight sequence that was filmed, and Carnahan decided to cut it. I agree with that choice.
Did you know that there's a scene at the end?
Post
There's
credit
a
scene, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a little. It doesn't give you the fight sequence, and it doesn't give you much, but it gives you the wolf, him laying on the wolf, and the wolf is still alive, and you see his breath a little bit. I think so, indicating that they
Yeah.
both lived. They fought it out, but they both lived.
What I got from it is that they're both dying, and that is their both their last breath.
Could be. No, that could be. Absolutely.
Because there's no way that alpha wolf's just gonna let that dude like lay on him, so he's hurt
Yeah,
enough to that. And
he
then
fucked him
if
up. Yeah, he put a hurting on him to some degree.
right, and if
Um,
he's just gonna lay there on him, like that is
did you think it was a good artistic choice to do that?
yeah, I didn't need to see. I already saw what the wolves got. I didn't need to see him like uppercut the thing and then gut it. Like I got the picture, man.
Well, he even said that like the emotional conclusion of the film had already taken place, which is
Right.
exactly right. Like you already got. I thought it was perfect, and it didn't. It surprised me in the theater, but it didn't disappoint me. I didn't feel like, oh, I wanted to see where that was going. I didn't feel that at all. I was like, fuck
I
yeah.
didn't wait for the ending the first time I saw it.
No, not even the post
That's how
credit.
yeah, that's how well yeah, that's what I
Oh
mean. I didn't
yeah,
wait for the post
you were
credit.
fulfilled, right? I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I was like, you know what? Because at first, of course, you asked, did he make it? Did he not? I'm like, of course he didn't fucking make it. Like, what are you saying? The
Yeah,
wolves
but
dead.
he said, "Fuck it, I'm going for it. I'm gonna fight today because I'm gonna live to die today."
That's why I like when he was screaming at God. He's like, you know, never mind. He goes, I'll do it myself.
Fuck it, I'll do it myself. Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, unless do you got anything else? Or can we
Nah, that's it.
let's close it out. All right, let's take a short break. Folks, thanks for hanging in there with us on 2012's The Gray with Liam Neeson, directed by Joe Carnahan. Pretty great film. We're gonna take a short break. When we get back, we're giving our rating and a short review to close out the podcast. See you in a moment. right, listeners, thank you for hanging in there. This has been our 8th edition to the film series of the podcast, our 24th episode overall. Joe Carnahan's The Gray from 2012, starring Liam Neeson, an absolute, kind of an underrated, a very underrated and kind of overlooked film. 100% overlooked, definitely underrated and underappreciated in the world. Had pretty good critical reception. I'm going to give it some very positive critical reception. I did want to hit this note. I wanted to quote what Roger Ebert said about the film. This is really telling about this film. And Roger Ebert, this was kind of one of the last. I think it was his last year. I think he died shortly after this came out at some point in 2012 or 2013. So he didn't review too many films after this, but I thought this was a pretty shocking revelation. He said, quote, "It was the first time I walked out of a film because of the previous film. The way I was feeling in my gut, it just wouldn't be fair to the next film. There's time for some conversation among the men, in this film, directed by Joe Carnahan and written by him and Ian Mackenzie Jeffers, treats them as individuals. They're not simply a group of victims. The Gray advances with pitiless logic. There are more wolves than men. The men have weapons. The wolves have patience. The weather is punishing. I sat regarding the screen with mounting dread. The movie had to have a happy ending, didn't it? If not happy, then at least a relief in some sense. Sit through the entire credits. There's one more shot still to come. Not that you wouldn't be content without it." And Erroll, you nailed that, end quote, by the way. You exactly said that. You were just like, "No, I'm good." And it's true that you don't actually need that, but it's a little extra. But I was shocked to hear that. I mean, Roger Ebert has watched tens of thousands of films.
Imagine that too. Like like the film was so good. You go to the next, you're watching it.
He's like,
And
I
you're like,
can't
nah.
even. I can't
You're
even.
like, nah, I can't watch this.
Think about this, man.
Like,
Think about this dude. This is the last year of his life. He dies after this. He has spent 50 plus years, 60 plus years watching tens of thousands of films and doing it professionally and then having to write and talk about them. He said this is the first time in his last year of life that he had to walk out of the next film because the gray was stuck in his bones.
Yeah, he's like, nah. He's like, this is disrespectful, man.
I can't even pay attention right now because this thing, I can't shake it. I can't shake the gray. Like, good Lord. I mean, that is telling about the film. That being said, I'm gonna and it was on Richard Roper's. It was number 3 on Richard Roper's top 10 2012 movies of the year. So like, and he worked with Ebert at one point. It was Ebert and Roper at one point. Like, A.O. Scott had it in his best 10 of the in his top 10 of the year. So this movie got the critical reception it deserved. I just don't think it's remembered the way it should be, which is why we're doing a podcast on it. So usually I let you kind of lead off with the rating, but I think I'm going to kick it off myself on this one, Errol.
Okay.
I'm going to take the ball and run with it while I'm flowing here. This movie is a very special film for me. It came out in 2012. This is right around. This is a period of time in which I'm watching a lot of movies. And in 2012, I'm watching a lot of movies, and I'm not really getting shook up by movies as much, though. I don't think it was that kind of year. There were some movies that I was really like riveted by and fascinated by, but this thing had a different tone. And even my 19-year-old self, or 20-year-olds, I guess I was 19 at the time. 19 is tough. And you're not exactly an emotional person at 19. I mean, you are, but like not usually repressing emotions as a 19-year-old male, which I definitely was. This film, it cut through all that bullshit. It cut through it all. I remember being like, holy shit, this is like shocked at how good this was. Truly shocked. And definitely rewatched it probably 3 or 4 times that year, especially when it came back. I think I saw it twice in the theater, and then a couple more times maybe in the next, when it finally like came out streaming, or I think I owned the DVD as well. So definitely one of my favorite films of the 2010s. Absolutely. I don't know if it will quite make my top 10 list or top 20 list, but absolutely one of probably the best pure action film, I guess you could say. It's hard to categorize the film, and I hate to stick it in a box that way. That being said, it's certainly one of my favorite films of the 2010s, no doubt. And for that, I'm going to give it the same rating I gave Wolf of Wall Street. 2 wolves, both getting 8.5. That's you, Errol. You're up next, brother. Again with the mute. You got me again.
Yeah, no, I've just been sitting here
You've been
patiently.
doing it too. You do it on purpose. I know you do every time.
No, no, that was on accident. But no, so this is I'd have to disagree just slightly with you. This is something that I would put in my top 20, even maybe top 10.
Of the 2010s, really?
No, of like what? Like all time. I really like this
All
movie.
time, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Um, I don't. There's not a lot of other movies like it. Like or like there's not a lot of other movies that like just face the topic of death like I mean stoically, I guess. Like there's a, a lot of movies just kind of glance around like the topic, but like the first person to like die there, he's like, "Yo, this is what's gonna happen. This is how you're gonna die," and that sets the tone for like everyone. Like to the point where they're just like asking, like, "Oh, is it all gonna be okay?" He's like, "Probably not," but he's like, "At least this is what we have to expect." Um, I like the realism of it. I don't think it was. And I like to kind of like double play how it might be like purgatory, but you still don't know. Um, I think it's a borderline perfect film.
Borderline perfect. What's your rating?
Um, give this one a big old 9.
Oh, okay. Give it a nine. If it wasn't shit, go for a 10 if you think it's perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but I would respect a 10 out of
Well,
10.
I was thinking 9.5, but I feel like I do a lot of like really high ratings and stuff. Um,
No, rate it with your heart. Give you stay true to yourself. Who cares? Just give it what you think what do you give it? Like what do you think it is out of 10 if you had to rate it? Don't worry about previous ratings. What do you give it?
hmm, you know what I give it?
Give it that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I give it a 10.
Yeah, you know you want to. I don't give a
Yeah,
fuck, man. Listen, I'm not going to judge you because guess what? I pulled that out of you because I know you give it a 10 out of 10. You can't be
you
sitting
do,
here
you
being
do it. Yeah.
you can't be sitting here telling me it's like top 10 favorite films ever made and you're going to sit
Yeah,
here and
but
give it a 9.
you could be good, but you don't need to be. But yeah, no, this is
No, no, you love it.
I
If you love it, you love it.
there's
This
yeah,
was
no,
your
I
pick too, by the way. This was the film you picked. You picked it this for this month. This was your
well,
film. You wanted to talk
so
about it.
you know my problem is I feel like I do a lot of high ratings, but we talk about what we like,
I
and I
know.
like
We got to start talking
I
about some
love what I like.
shitty ass movies at some point here.
Yeah, we'll get something, but yeah, no, okay, yes, now unwavering, yes, this is I think it's a
It's
you
10
know
out of
what?
10.
No, because like I said, almost perfect. 9.5.
Okay.
9.5
All right. All
for
right. I
sure.
won't pressure you. I won't
Yeah,
pressure you.
lock it in. I love this
Lock it
movie.
in 9.5 solid rating. That's a good rating too. And you know what? It's fair. And I almost gave it a 9. And I actually got that wrong. I actually I gave Wolf of Wall Street a 9. And I don't think it's as good as Wolf of Wall Street. I not because to be honest with you, I think I like the film more. I don't. The film is more my style. I'll say that this is more me because it's like this.
Yeah.
It's like this B movie that's it's like an elevated B movie, right? It's like a movie that shouldn't work. It should be like this. It's got a very unique location. By the way, this is the second film that we've done that takes place in like the cold in one of like the Arctic or the Antarctic because the thing is the same way. And I freaking love movies that take place in the snow because it reminds me of home. Maybe I don't know.
It's a whole nother character.
Yeah, it really is. It's the elements. But I will say this is a film that like I just love this style. It's kind of like you know what it reminds me of is Signs. M Night Shyamalan's
Okay.
Signs because Signs is like the same way. It's like this B rate. It's what you would expect it to be like a B rated. But it's elevated. It's like it has all the markings of what would be like a B movie, but then the filmmaker does something unique that like is deep and makes you think, and you're like, oh shit, like this is more than just an action movie, and this is why if I were to compare it to Wolf of Wall Street, they're not anything like each other in other than the wolf aspect. They're two completely different things. Um, I think The Wolf of Wall Street is just a more difficult film to make, and Scorsese does, I think, a lot more artistically. And by the way, I think the only reason I dock this movie any points pretty much at all is some of the line delivery is a little bit. I have to deduct some points for that. Even Liam Neeson at a couple of points um, delivers a couple lines that I'm just like, that probably could have used another take or two. Um, but
It's
some
cold
of
out there.
Yeah, I know they don't want to be, and they really did shoot on area. They shot in Alaska. I mean, or no, not Alaska. I believe it was shot in Vancouver, British Columbia, somewhere up there.
Dude, the water scene then, I feel so bad.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough, man. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Freezing.
But yeah, I mean, it's my kind of movie, and as much as I love Wolf of Wall Street, I think I'd probably Wolf of Wall Street is very long, and it's got a big important topic that is like kind of grandiose and a lot to digest. Whereas this movie, you can just sit back. You don't even have. It's kind of like The Shining, right? Like we talked about The Shining. The Shining works as a film if you want to sit down and you're looking to like really pick apart a movie and kind of like unpeel the layers. This movie's that way too. Or you could just sit back and just enjoy it as an action movie, or in the case of The Shining, as just a horror movie ghost story. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're more than welcome to just sit back and just like kind of digest it.
Oh yeah. I
So
like options.
yeah, yeah, me too. They're both great films. And the Gray, I mean the Gray, what a fucking awesome fucking movie. I hope I hope from one thing that this podcast does. Um, I hope if people listen to this podcast that haven't seen the film, I really want this film to get a reevaluation cycle. So like we're not a big enough podcast that's gonna like we're gonna induce any kind of change in that. But like if we can contribute in some way to like getting this film a little bit more of a recycling of attention in any amount, I'm happy to do that because I actually think this film deserved a lot more than it got.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So that being said, that is the podcast, folks. 8.5 out of 10 for me, and a 9.5 for Erroll for 2012's The Gray. Upcoming next on the Peripheral Views podcast, Erroll, we're going back into the music episode, the music series. It's going to be our fourth installment on that one. I will apologize to the listeners today. I do have a bit of a cold, so if my voice does sound a bit off in this podcast, that was why. A little sniffling, a little coughing going on. It's that time of year. But hopefully that's cleared up by the next pod. We're doing another music episode. Now, this one was my pick. Okay. We're going to do it's actually an unofficial album. It's not really, it's more of a compilation album, but it is posthumously distributed, a Blaze Foley album. It's called Sitting by the Road. It is a compilation of a bunch of like kind of demo recordings from Blaze Foley from back in the day. It's distributed by Lost Art Records. Really excited to talk about that. Erroll, have you gotten a chance to cycle through that yet?
No, not yet. Haven't gave it a peep.
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy over the next week as we get ready for that podcast. You're gonna really enjoy it. I think it's right up your alley. It's an interesting his life story. We'll talk a little bit about his life and what happened to Blaze Foley back in the 1960s, 70s. Interesting character and a brilliant songwriter. And you'll see that, Erroll, when you get to listen to the album. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next episode of the Peripheral Views podcast. So we'll probably be pumping that out sometime in the next week. We once again appreciate all the listenership that we've acquired, especially in the last episode. All that extra support has been greatly appreciated. It's an amazing thing to see that people are listening to the podcast, and we're really grateful for all that. Erroll, I'm going to hit the housekeeping on the way out. You got anything you want to close out with, though?
No, that's right around it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, housekeeping on the way out. You know where to find us. Peripheral View 123 on X or Twitter. SoundCloud.com/Peripheral Views 123. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just throw us in the search bar. And if you do happen to listen to us on those platforms, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. If you'd like to reach us more directly, we can be reached at the Gmail account, peripheralviewspodcast@gmail.com. And all of our ratings and episode content is always uploaded to our our webpage, that is peripheralviewspodcast.com. Everything's on our website that we've done so far if you're looking to stream us there as well. That being said, this has been the Peripheral Views podcast. The Gray, we talked about The Gray. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it. And we really appreciate all the support and listenership we've acquired. So thank you guys again for listening, and we will see you on the next round of the Peripheral Views podcast.